What's up, folks? It's John with National Sports Entertainment. I wanted to cover just our plays for this week. We had about the most boring game ever on Thursday night, and honestly, like that's part of the one of the biggest parts of one of the biggest reasons that I give people when they ask why I think it's scripted. Imagine if every game went like that, and if you have a league where there's 100% unpredictability, right, and anything can happen, we probably would have a lot more games where something like that happens, or 50 to nothing blowouts, and just games that are not entertaining or captivating. So it's one of the reasons you see games like that and wonder why you don't see them more often, and kind of makes me wonder. But anyway, I will say it was surprising for the Niners to lose here. It's not like the biggest shocker in the world that they're, I think, mathematically eliminated, but even if not, essentially eliminated from the playoffs. It's not uncommon for the NFL to have, as all leagues do, a top team, shockingly miss out. I'm just more surprised that they did it here with 3 weeks left in the season. It could have been a much more interesting in the NFC West, and now you still have the Cardinals and Seahawks right in it, so maybe that's kind of their logic. But I thought it would have made more sense for the Niners to win. But these other ones, a lot of them, like I said, some of them I'm even going into like next year. Like certain teams I feel like are going to get really good draft picks and stuff like that. So I try and look at that. Or teams that I think they're setting up for next year. A couple examples, if the Jags move to London, they're going to be one. I think they've been doing it with Miami kind of toward the end of this year, setting that up for next year. Maybe they sign just someone pretty big. Obviously, people with young quarterbacks, the Bears, definitely, especially firing the coach, setting up for next year. And you could say the same with the Jets. The Jets are definitely an anomaly, though. So anyway, the first game, anytime I see a spread this big, I just think where the public, like where the average person, the casual bettor, maybe someone doesn't know too much about sports, and they're just betting. And we have a lot of that now with the Hard Rock and their ridiculous ads every 3 seconds. And it makes me think, again, 16.5 is a heavy spread to be laying on the road. It makes me think more people are probably, if they're running teasers, going to have the Giants in a teaser. Or just with 16.5, having them with that many points. I think it's going to be a prison pounding, so I'll take the Ravens to cover the 16.5. I'm going to take the Jets to cover the 3. I think they definitely win. My logic hasn't changed too much. It was a long time ago for the first time, the idea of the Jags getting the first overall pick kind of made sense to me. Right now, of course, they're tied for the second, which is why I think losing to the Jets would really make more sense. I just think of the two teams, it makes more sense to give the Jags a top pick. And this would obviously put them basically in second alone, depending on how like the Panthers and a few other teams do. So I like the Jets to win. I'm going to take them to cover as well. Then we got the Cowboys, Panthers, and my logic of, well, they want to keep some teams in the hunt for the playoffs instead of knocking all these teams out. It hasn't really worked out too well. We have, a lot of these teams did get knocked out indeed, but the Cowboys still have a chance, and I think they're going to at least keep one team in the hunt. The Commanders play the Eagles next week. So the Cowboys really have to flip the Commanders, so they need a lot to happen. But that all being said, I think it's definitely a possibility. I don't think they, honestly, at this point, I don't think they're going to. But they might at least keep it where, again, the Cowboys are still technically in the hunt. I'm not sure how the tiebreakers go. I know they haven't done great against the division. And even though it's a funky spread, I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I'll take them straight up, of course, for plus 135 to beat the Panthers. Commanders, Saints, and a pretty heavy spread at home. But I'm just going to basically, I'll call it double book with my logic, and I'm going to take the Saints in an upset here. Again, if the Saints win and the Cowboys win, it just keeps it a little more interesting in both the NFC South and East. So I think that's definitely a possibility. So I like the Saints for a win here, and the Cowboys also for a win. Bengals, Titans. I think the Bengals cover. Again, a lot of these teams include the Bengals are basically in the same spot as the Cowboys. They'd have to flip. I believe it is the Broncos who have a clean 3 more wins than them. So again, it's not something that's going to be easy, but I think they at least keep it close. And honestly, of all the teams that could make, the Bengals make the most sense. And this was another thing back in week 4, I think it was, maybe week 5. I had done my Super Bowl video, and again, the Bengals were the one team to me that made the most sense to make a run, just because that's kind of been the whole narrative behind Joe Burrow. Starting off seasons bad, and then making a run. So I like the Bengals to cover. I like them to win. This looks like a classic win, no cover. By that I mean the Bengals win by less than 5, probably by 3 or 4. So on this one, I like the Bengals to win, but I like the Titans to cover. Sometimes I think that I make the mistake. I think a lot of people make the mistake of just taking the cover, right, on a team that they like to win. But when it's only 5 points and you have a really bad Titans team, I think, again, it's probably maybe a field goal victory by the Bengals at the end of the game. Or they hold on and win by less than 5. So Bengals win, Titans cover. Chiefs, Browns. I like the Browns cover. Just looking just looking at the spread, 4.5 again, pretty short. And the Chiefs have won a lot of close games this year. Kind of a theme with them. So could see the possible upset, but I still kind of like my narrative of them tying Tom Brady. And then they'll say, was this the best individual season of all time, when the Chiefs do exactly what Brady did. Only Brady, he went undefeated in the regular season and finished 18-0, but then lost in the Super Bowl, which was a huge asterisk on it, of course, making it 18-1. And I think we're going to get the same deal here, but I think the Chiefs are going to go 18-1 and win the Super Bowl. So then they'll say, well, this was the greatest season ever, and they'll argue if this or the 72 Dolphins was a better team. So all that being said, I think the Chiefs win a close game. So I like the Browns to cover the 4.5, because I don't think anyone's going to be on the Browns here. Dolphins, Texans. So Tua has a record of not doing well in the cold. It's almost like a meme at this point. The guy, anytime he goes, his record in cold places, but I don't know what they define cold as. Like, to me, cold has to be under 40, but for a lot of people, anything under 60 is cold. I guess it depends where you're from, but yeah, I think since he's going to Texas, and it's also odd that the Texans are only 2.5-point favorites at home. It's just very convenient for the Dolphins to win this game. And again, with Tua back now, I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to definitely. If I'll guarantee you this, and this might not age well, but between the Broncos and Dolphins, in my opinion, there's no way the Broncos get into the playoffs. Or I'll say even between the Broncos, Dolphins, and Bengals, there's no way the Broncos are the team to get in. I just don't see it happening. So, this helped us a lot last year. We were able to really nail the last couple weeks, even if we didn't do great all year. We've had a very 50-50 year, which is down for us. But as far as the end of the year, we really just hit almost everything, because some matchups just made so much sense. So anyway, again, I'm kind of going to double book here and go with the Dolphins to win outright and go with the Colts to win outright. Keeps the Colts in it as well. Keeps it really close. And even though they're showing some love for Bo Nix, I just don't think the Broncos are going to get in the playoffs. And it would be weird if they did, because then we might have a deal where, gosh, on both sides, the 3 wild card teams, or 3 of the 4 wild card teams. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 3 wild card teams. Two of them are probably going to come from like the same division. Like, so that by that I mean the AFC North's going to have the 2 wild card teams, only leaving 1 open wild card spot. And the AFC West, you have the Chargers and Chiefs, and the Broncos would be the 3rd. And I don't think they're going to do that, because then again, what happens is you inevitably get rematches, because you have 3 teams from the same division in the playoffs. There's a good chance they're going to play each other, and they've already played twice. So that's kind of the logic I used last year, and it worked out really well. So all that being said, that whole rant was basically just to enunciate that I really do like the Dolphins for an upset win and the Colts for an upset win for the playoffs to be more interesting. Patriots, Cardinals. I think the safe play here is probably the Cardinals cover. It's a sneaky one. I could see actually an upset, if I'm being honest. And I actually like the Patriots for a few reasons. And them being one, again, my Jaguars logic. If the Patriots win, then they're going to the Jags are going to have a better draft pick than them. And also, again, of teams in the NFC, there's a lot that can, get the 7th seed. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be in the playoffs. To me, even the Seahawks make more sense. Even if, say the Bucs win the division, the Falcons getting the 7th seed, to me, especially with Minnesota being in there and Cousins and all that, makes the Falcons a bigger draw than the Cardinals. So I don't believe in the Cardinals that much. Even if they lose, they'd still be in the hunt. Nothing crazy would happen. And more people are likely to be on them. So I like the Patriots here. I'm going to take them +6, though. I think it's just a safe play. Bills-Lions, this should be a fun game. They're going to call it a Super Bowl preview, a possible Super Bowl matchup, which means we know we're not going to get that in the Super Bowl. They do this every year. They did it with the Niners and Ravens at the end of last year. And, this is what we'll probably see in the Super Bowl. And they do it with every year they have two teams. And this year it's obviously the Bills-Lions. So, as far as the Super Bowl, the Lions are seeming to make the most sense if you look at the Vegas odds as far as making it there for the NFC. I don't think they win, but either way, 2.5 point spread, it's about right. They should be slight favorites. The Bills come off a pretty bad loss. I'm going to take the Bills to win this one outright. I think what they're going to do is do exactly what they did with the Ravens and and Lamar with Josh Allen. So if Josh Allen beats the Lions and has a really good game, it basically solidifies him for MVP. And then they're also going to have these ridiculously forced MVP discussions because they've been doing it all year, talking about how their running backs don't get any love. Notably Henry and Saquon, who do have very fair MVP arguments. But yeah, so when I think Josh Allen wins the MVP, they'll, ESPN being ESPN, I wouldn't be surprised if they made it into a race angle. And, quarterbacks get the love, but the running backs don't, or something like that. Or Josh Allen beat this running back and it shouldn't have happened. They kind of did it in the NBA, if you remember, with Jokic. So I'm curious. But just based off the way they're hyping up Josh Allen, and because I think we're going to definitely get Allen Mahomes in the AFC Championship, Bills win makes more sense to me. Bucks Chargers, I like the Chargers for the cover. Again, I think them locking in a playoff spot makes sense. From the beginning of the year, they made sense to me, just because of some of the possible matchups. We might get another Harborough matchup, if they match up with the Ravens again. And again, the Bucks losing here keeps the Saints in it. Them and the Falcons stays a little tighter. I think the Falcons and them are tied, or the Falcons are a game back. But yeah, I like the Chargers to cover the 3. Steelers, Eagles, they're making a big deal about how Pittsburgh hasn't won against the Eagles or in Philly. It's one or the other, maybe both, in like 60-something years. And a lot of times when they do that stuff, it winds up sticking. But I don't know why. This time around, I like the Steelers. I think they're going to win, and they'll make a big deal of it. And it also keeps the NFC a little closer as far as if the Commanders maybe, if they're going to make them have a run at the division. They play the Eagles next week, so that game has a lot more spice if their records are closer. So I like the Steelers for an upset win here. Even though I have the Saints winning, that's kind of the other reason, because if they both lose, the Commanders are still kind of in striking distance, I believe. I think they have the tiebreaker. I'd have to check. But then they play next week. It would be, they can cut it to 2 games. We got Packers, Seahawks. And I like the Packers to cover here. Again, the Seahawks win. I think they lock a spot, which they very well could. But I just have a feeling they're going to keep it open for a little bit longer, kind of like the Broncos. And I just don't believe in the Seahawks that much. Again, somebody has to get in, I get that. But, I believe in the Falcons more than I do the Seahawks. So, Seahawks lose, Falcons win, and again, it's a 1-game race for the NFC with a few weeks to play. And again, I think they established love. They established the Packers as a threat. And it's late in the year. They're obviously going to make the playoffs. So, to me, it makes sense. So, I got the Packers here covering the 2.5. Bears, Vikings, a 7-point spread. The Bears obviously coming off a terrible loss. And we had the Niners covered. My logic with the Bears is pretty straightforward. Obviously, this Matt Eberflus was never going to be a part of a playoff team. They're going to get, in my opinion, in the offseason, at least a name for their coach. I wouldn't even be surprised if it happened to be someone like Dion. And then they get a pretty good pick. He could theoretically, he wouldn't get his son, obviously, and maybe that doesn't happen because he goes somewhere where his son can go. But it doesn't have to be Dion. It could be a lot of coaches. But I think he said he's going to give Colorado 3 years, so he probably wouldn't go there next year. There's been talks like Jay Cutler. There's been talks about some other guys. But whoever it may be, I still think it'll be a name. Or somebody with some aura like Dan Campbell. So I don't think the Bears are going to, again, finish up the season very strong now that we kind of know it's not their year. I think they're really setting them up for next year. I will take them to cover the 7, though. I wouldn't rule out a win, just because I think we're going to see growing pains again. We got a new coach now, and he's probably not going to stay. It's definitely an interim thing. But since it is on Monday night, I think it'll be a little closer, kind of like they kept the Bears and Lions really close. And I could see the upset, so I'll take the Bears plus 7. And then we got Falcons, Raiders. And love the Falcons to win. Again, keeps them even with the Bucks. Keeps the NFC a lot closer. But not sure if they cover. I'm going to take them to cover anyway. I think the Raiders, and they're actually 2-11. So over the next couple weeks, I might have them winning just because I really do think the Jags are going to get a better pick than the Raiders. I think the Jags definitely get a top 3 pick, to me, 1 makes the most sense. But we'll have to see what happens, because they could justify them getting like Travis Hunter or somebody like that at the 2 or 3 pick. So there's a lot of things that could happen. You don't have to get the first pick to get the best players, essentially what I'm saying. And then again, it keeps the Falcons in it here with the cover. So yeah, Falcons, I got them covering the Raiders, and again, a lot of this I looked into next week just to kind of see who's playing who. Chargers probably win. So again, that's why I'm not loving the Broncos' chances. You see we got Eagles, Commanders. Falcons have an easy one. Bengals have a relatively easy one. So you can kind of see a lot of the stuff from next week. We do get Jags, Raiders next week. So that would be perfect, right? Raiders beat the Jags. And basically, the loser of this team is likely getting the number 1 pick. So I wonder if because if you assume it's real, the idea of throwing games to get the first pick is not new. So I wonder if we're going to see a lot of bad coaching in this game. But yeah, a lot of Bucks, Cowboys, a lot of and even Saints, Packers games that again make more sense if the teams that I have winning this week win and vice versa. Just because if they play next week and one team's already eliminated, etc., it just doesn't make as much sense. So we used that logic last year, and towards the end of the year, it really paid off really well. Just because we were able to predict the exact seeds of every team by week 15 or 16, just based off of the only playoff matchups that made sense for entertainment value. So yeah, that's this week's picks, and I think I always think we'll have a good week, but definitely think we have a better week than the last couple of weeks where we were right around 500. Usually we pick closer to 750 if I'm being honest. 3 out of every 4 games is usually a win. So yeah, I like the matchups this week, and I think a lot of the Vegas lines are a little screwy, so kind of makes me like the picks even more. So take care and happy earnings.